Mary Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Thomas R. Wilson, storyteller, event specialist, advocate, and purpose-driven creative. Please enjoy Thomas R. Wilson. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Thomas R. Wilson, storyteller, event specialist, advocate, and purpose-driven creative. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
I am super excited to chat with you about creativity and to hear how creativity enlivens and shows up in your life. But before we start that, why don't you take a couple of moments and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So, as stated, my name is Thomas R. Wilson. Many people call me Thomas. I'm definitely not a Tom. Um, I know way too many people who default to Tom, and it's like, nope, there's a reason I say Thomas. But as stated, I am an event specialist, writer, advocate, so many different roles. If I were to go over all of them, we would not have time for me to share anything else. But I am also a very dedicated lived subject matter expert.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is I grew up very much when I was really young, I was told I was a prodigy by like second grade. People said I had the IQ of a 40-year-old. So much, like so many things, many people in the neurodiverse and mental health space here at such a young age. And then that changed radically once my actual diagnosis is started kicking in.
Hmm.
And that went from prodigy student to like great student to problem student or disruptive or argumentative. I was told I was going to end up in jail by teachers by the time I was in fifth grade. I
Wow.
was deemed in many programs too hard to work with, too disruptive. I didn't listen. And as a young kid, you learn a lot about people's perception when they say that to someone who's like under 13 years of age.
Mhm.
And I realized a lot of different things. One of them definitely did not make things easy on people. I'm not here to blame everyone else and not take accountability. That's just not
Mhm.
the case. I was not easy to work with.
Mhm.
Thank goodness I had family and friends who really stuck with me and several mentors.
Mhm.
But I learned during that time, those are things you should not say to a kid. Those are things that are very much part of a systemic issue within many cultures of people who don't fit in the norm or don't mold to what others learn or how they want them to learn, how they want them to behave. And so as I got older, I actually ended up in programs as I got older that really accepted me and really
Mm.
started to teach me the idea of a strength based mindset versus a
Mhm.
deficit based mindset, which I'll get into that, I'm sure, at some point in this discussion. But essentially, it's not ignoring the problems a person has, it's utilizing their strengths to help them overcome that.
Mhm.
Um, and so when I got older, graduated from college, something many people said I never would. Proud to say I've never been in jail, which is a huge thing for me.
Mhm.
But additionally, I started off my career as a reading tutor after leaving retail, which I don't, if you work in retail and you love retail, more kudos to you. It was not for me. It's a very tough field, but I spent time as a reading tutor helping people who, like kiddos who were behind on their reading skills. It was a massive success. I then ended
Mm.
up in a day program and ended up in the job that really got me started in healthcare and
Mm.
then helped to shape a lot of my mindsets. But because I'm going to try to be quick here, I opened up my business in 2021 at a point where I was extremely depressed and worried. And I tell people all the time, when you have neurodiversity or you have a mental health need, really any diagnosis, it's a daily commitment to your well-being. And when you
Mm-hmm.
stop applying that daily commitment, your life can fall apart very quickly. And so that was my point. And I looked at myself as someone who had loved stories and reading and writing and all these things my entire life. And I said, what's the thing that's going to help me get past this?
Mm.
And the one thing that helped was storyteller. So I opened my business. And I'm not here to say it was magical or miraculous changes. It's a lot of hard work, it's a lot
Yeah.
of dedication. And especially as someone who runs events for kiddos that were like me,
Mm.
or people who are seeking their community, or really just have their own neurodiversity or neurospiciness, their own mental health needs, their own physical limitations, it's hard work. There's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of pain and struggle and questioning if I want to do this some days. Um, but I've really been able to take my story and help other people not live through that by accessing community spaces, accessing Dungeons and Dragons that teaches real life skills, accessing storytelling, public speaking, whatever it is.
Mm.
I get to take what I learned and apply that, and it's helped so many people. It's been a rapid series of progression as well, but it's also been so many hours of paperwork and documentation and planning and logistics and all kinds of stuff, but it is a beautiful ride.
Mm. Wow, what a journey you have been on. Thank you for sharing all of the pieces and that just the honest reflection that it hasn't been easy and it isn't always easy. And we still get to make that choice every day to keep keep at it. And that what a gift to be able to keep showing up and sharing your knowledge and experience with others through story. So, thank you for the work you do. It sounds amazing, and what a gift to share spaces with other people who are experiencing similar things that you have lived. And yeah,
Thank you for your kind words.
I'm curious for you when you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
So I think the big thing for me is I mean there's two. One of them is the idea of self-expression. I One of the things that I love about humanity is no matter what point we have been in, there has always been a creative drive. I mean,
Mm.
we see this like literally in the Stone Age era where people painted on walls,
Mhm.
and somehow figured out how to get that paint to last like so very long, which is amazing to me. We see it like in the Bronze Age, all the Renaissance, all these eras of humanity. There's been this acknowledgement that self-expression is good for us. It teaches us,
Mm.
it empowers us, it understands us. And yet, I think the thing for me is it's also an act of defiance, especially in a world where so many people are taught to conform or to get a job or like a quote unquote real job, or they have to pay the bills. I think a lot of people, and this has sadly been true for a very long point around the world, people are taught to give up creativity. They're
Mhm.
taught to just move on, stop doing quote unquote childish things, which I'd love to live in a world where childish is not an insult anymore. Um, but all of these things, and I think when we get to choose and embrace our creativity and turn it into not just a passion, but a career
Mm.
or a momentary release, it is defying those expectations. And I think,
Mhm.
especially now, the thing I love about like social media and all of these different avenues where creativity is becoming relevant more and more is that defiance is right ringing truer and stronger than it
Mm.
has for so much of like American or many other societies. And I think that defiance is a beautiful thing, not because it's disruptive or angry, but because it's people identifying their passion and their love for
Mm.
something.
Absolutely. I would totally agree that self-expression and as an act of defiance and allowing passion to come forward and be shared. In your experience, how do you tap into passion and those more fiery creative sparks?
I think the thing for me, especially as an introvert, I'm kind of describe myself as an ambivert, but I definitely lean further into the mentality of introverts a bit more. I think for me, especially as a neurospicy creator, the real spark comes from the results, but it also comes from the people that I get to share my art with. Like I
Mm-hmm.
when I was 4 years old, I was in love with The Raven. And like ever
Ah,
since then, I have loved Edgar Allan Poe's work. And I always joke that like my literary hero being Edgar Allan Poe tells people a lot about the amount of money that I expect to make someday, or my reality viewpoints on the world.
sure.
But the thing I love about this, and I think it's very much tied to my hero as well, it's not about making a ton of money. It's not about being famous. It's about connecting to the community who loves what we do. And
Mm,
so when I get to tell stories to either kiddos or adults and they react with shock or passion, or I get to see that, that is where my passion comes from. But I will also say the other thing for me, especially someone who can hyperfixate, is I draw really clear boundaries with my
mm,
passions. I work really hard not to do the same thing every day or the
yeah.
same task in everything I do. And I think that diversity and that ability to explore and expand in a variety of different avenues is really what keeps my heart and my love for my work going,
Mm,
because it's not just the same grind every second of every day.
hmm. Absolutely. Well, I have so many questions. The about the hyper focusing and the act of choosing to focus on different things and broaden the hyper focus into expanded focus. How would what are some of tips to help other individuals who experience that hyper focus that how could they expand their focus to more pieces or what are those things that you would encourage others to do when they find themselves in that space?
I mean, one thing that I always tell people is have something for yourself. If you're
Mm,
creating, whether it's online, in person, or podcast or otherwise, um, I always advise having something that is just yours.
hmm.
I've already said, I think like social media can be a beautiful thing. I have my own opinions on a lot of it that I'm not going to get into right now.
Sure.
Um, but I think there's something really profoundly special about having a creative activity that's just for us.
Hmm.
Like we don't even have to share it with those we love. It's just the thing we do. The other thing that I recommend in that is and this is something that takes a lot of practice and continual examination and self-reflection, and I mentioned a little bit ago, but I would recommend having like really clear boundaries with what
Hmm.
you do create.
Yeah.
Understand where you want to be, how you want to do it. Don't push yourself outside of your comfort zone because people say you can do X, Y, and Z. And I think like much with a lot of life boundaries, and this was something beautifully said by a game master that I actually immensely look up to, Brennan Lee Mulligan. Boundaries are not, well, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember it now, but essentially boundaries are a gift for me and you. And
Mm,
I think that is such a beautiful way to say that, because a lot of people think of boundaries as limiting, whereas you look at it as a gift, it's allows you to expand. And the third thing I would really say is if you are losing your passion for something, or if
Mm.
you're in that process, or it doesn't feel like it's working out. And I think this is such an important part of life. And I was reflecting on this, and then I watched Bob's Burgers again on an episode, which I love. Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers deserves like all the awards. But there was a character, Tina. She was about to quit a lifeguard duty, and she gave this very valid reason to this sweet little old man about why she would quit. And he just responded with, "Oh yeah, no, you should quit then. Quitting is a very, very freeing, liberating thing." And I think it's just good to have, and I love that whole segment. It was like a 20-second thing on a TV show. But it's so true. Like if something is not validating, or it's being toxic, or it's
Yeah.
in like endorsing a lot of hateful comments or something, it's okay to step away and refocus
Mm.
into something else. And I think a lot of the time people forget that quitting is a good thing. It's a healthy thing,
Hmm.
and it allows us to refocus on what we really want to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for voicing that. I think it is really important to remind ourselves that it's okay to step away if that means quitting, if that means pivoting, if that means taking a break, time off, whatever it means for you, that there's actual reason, valid reason to do that. And it doesn't mean that you aren't still processing internally what was happening or what was going on. So yeah, I'm curious, you know, growing up, you shared a little bit about kind of early childhood and how things shifted and changed, but for you, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
I mean, the earliest has always been when when I was probably less than 4 years old. People around me telling me stories.
Mm.
I like to say that my story starts with stories, because like my dad, my mom, they knew that this is something I really loved, and so I would cuddle in bed and hear stories.
Mhm.
And there were probably certain times where there were stories I shouldn't have heard, or like,
Sure.
storytelling is not always used effectively, I would say.
Mm.
Or intentionally can lead to certain things. And I'm not going to get into the whole reason why I say that, but I that is that. I mean, the passion, the love I had for storytelling. I mean,
Mm.
I also have loved the Paddington books
Mm.
my entire life.
Mhm.
I know sometimes people will be like, "Oh, it's just Winnie the Pooh in England." It's not. It's a very different
Yeah.
um story. And I just love that when I was a kid, um they like the books were so beloved, and there were teddy bears all around, and like I would talk to my teddy bears and tell stories with the teddy bears and the stuffed animals, and so
Mm.
it's always been a part of me.
Hmm. I love that. And I love hearing your story starts with story and how you've kept that alive. It sounds like through your entire life. And the work that you do as an event specialist, I wonder if you could share a little bit about what that experience is and how you go about creating events or participating in creating events and the support of individuals who experience neurodivergence and neurospiciness and how that differs for people who may not know what that means.
A lot of my events are very different. Right now, I'm doing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role playing games. For
Hmm.
those who don't know, Dungeons and Dragons is a cooperative storytelling game where you roll dice and create a group storytelling element. And those I do a lot of that because, especially sensory friendly or neurodiversity friendly D&D game or Dungeons Dragons game is very in demand.
Mm-hmm.
It I also emphasize that through like skill development for younger individuals, such as like math, problem solving, creative thought processing.
Mm-hmm.
For adults, it's often helping people connect who really need to and seek their community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's a lot of my work. It wasn't what I was expecting a lot of it to be, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy for that. The other things I'm doing, like right now, I'm doing an ongoing every 2 weeks at a place called the Third Place for Kids, an event called Stories Meant for Movement, which is about helping kiddos embrace play and the power and the healing that can come from that. I
Mm-hmm.
myself am not a therapist, so I can't do therapeutic events, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really about helping kids understand that their passion for play is actually deeply healthy and incredibly important,
Mm-hmm.
which I know a lot of people would argue it's not. It is. It's how we learn how to talk, play, interact, creatively think, all kinds of stuff. And then I do a bunch of other. I've done a lot of public speaking on podcasts as well as other projects, and
Mm-hmm.
at its core, all of it is rooted in that strength based and
Mm-hmm.
empathy based system of care. And I mean, I do definitely get people who they're really struggling, they're having a hard time in life, or they're just left the program and it's not working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And in both of those strength based and empathy based mindsets, one of the big things is identifying that people are not all going to behave the same way. They're not
Mm-hmm.
all going to play the same way. They're not all going to be able to sit down at a table and roll dice for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I had somebody, young person, was rolling themselves on the floor, and that's how they stim. And I was like, as long as you were okay, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a note from their parent, and they were like, yeah, no, this is what happens. I really appreciate the fact that you let this happen
Mm-hmm.
and embrace that this was something they did with grace. And it was a beautiful interaction. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so all of this work is really just rooted also in the dignity of people's decisions and the
Yeah.
right to express ourselves how we
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah, I love that. And I think your thoughts on play and how important it is I would agree. And the science backs it up. I love the statistic that if we learn something through play, we only have to repeat it 10 times for it to integrate
Mm-hmm.
in our nervous system versus if we learn it outside of play, it takes much longer. So being able to incorporate play into all the things you do, can only imagine how quickly people are picking things up.
I'm actually a big advocate that we reintroduce play for adults.
Yes.
And it's such an important part of life, and it really aggravates me that people shame adults for
Mm,
playing or things like
mhm.
that. It's just a very biased society we live in.
I would absolutely agree, and I fully support play for adults. It is I think that was part of my thesis of how adults can de-stress is through play. And so I I love this work and totally support it. Well, for you, how do you keep on days where things feel maybe a little harder to navigate? How do you keep your own creative spark chugging away when you're feeling depleted or feeling like, oh, maybe I don't have the same energy that I did last week?
I think a big part of it for me, and I'm going to be fully transparent, there are days where, and this might sound bad to some people until I explain it a little bit further. There are definitely days where the money, like, is a big part of
Yeah.
it. Like, I am someone who truly believes that if you say yes to something, you should make it happen,
Okay.
and carry that forward. And like, there's sometimes parents will pay me beforehand, and it's like, oh no, I definitely need to show up to this. I can't not honor this request.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing for me is I'm very good at getting lost in the creativity to a point
Mm.
where I temporarily forget about that stress and that tiredness for a little bit.
Hmm.
And I know some people might call that masking or hiding or all these things. And I think it's not so much that as it is embracing a temporary escape.
Hmm.
Um, I do also say I have a very interactive person centric career.
Yeah.
And as an introvert, the vast majority of my downtime is sitting in front of a TV or a video game and just being quiet in a dark room and
Mm-hmm.
doing what I need. Um, I actually explained that to someone recently, and they couldn't wrap their mind around it. They were like, "You don't hang out with your friends? You don't do such and such?" I was like, "I need to do what I need to do, and I'm like not gonna apologize for that."
Yeah.
Um, and it's a challenge for those who don't really get that side of the introvert spectrum.
Hmm.
But if it helps me live my best life, then I'm fine with it.
I love it. Absolutely. We got to do what we got to do to keep
Hmm.
doing what we got to do. Yeah. Well, Thomas, this has been such a treat chatting with you. I have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I would have to say it's joy. Um,
Hmm.
I am actually a really big advocate against the happiness mindset.
Hmm.
I think it's very flawed, especially as when we realize happiness is not meant to last for
Hmm.
very long. It's an emotion, they come, they go.
Hmm.
Um, and so I like a joy, sometimes serenity,
Hmm.
sometimes sometimes stress and anxiety and panic and worry and fretting or stress and anger.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, part of the beautiful part of my creativity is a lot of the time it's not about me. It's
Hmm.
about other people and seeing the joy and the laughter on their faces and the lasting success.
Hmm.
And so I think when you have a creativity that's rooted in community or rooted in healing or compassion or empathy, it's a lot easier to maintain it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's also easier to return to that.
Hmm.
But I think with all things that are creative, it's also important to know, much like emotion, it's not always going to be there.
Hmm.
It's not always going to be present, and it's important to be okay with that when it's not.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for all of that and for sharing your stories and your experiences and the creativity that shows up in your life and in the work that you do. If people want to learn more about the work that you have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, so you can always email me. My now I always apologize to people listening in because I did not realize how much this email would sound confusing until I started saying it out loud. So it's ndttrpg@gmail. And for those of you who can now understand why that is complex to hear, you now know. Um, I'm also on LinkedIn, which people can always reach out to me there as well. I'll make sure my link tree and my website are also posted. I've got to get better at my website. It's my goodness, website design is a whole thing. Um, and on top of that, with my email, you're always also welcome to ask me questions as well. I love
Mhm.
the idea of questions. I think it is one of the most important things in life to be able to ask questions
Mhm.
and have that be respected. And then additionally, I will make sure that, like I said, my link tree, my LinkedIn, and a couple other important sites where people will also be in the comments, just so people can reach out. And even if you stop by, say hi, or read something that I write, whatever it is, I just appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you, Thomas. I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access. And this has been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Same.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.